Hey everybody, this is Sheila with Designs by Baby Moon, and today I want to show you something super cute. Let me get rid of this little doodad right here, and I want to show you some fun stuff that I played with this week a little bit, and I've made a bunch of these bag tags. Y'all know I love bag tags and charms, and I was playing in Stitch Artist, and I have this little shape. I was doing a couple things. First of all, I was playing with the design itself and then playing with the shapes in the design, some of the ace fonts on Embrilliance. Um, it's a module called Ace. And then also in Stitch Artist, obviously, because I digitize a lot of things and I just thought that would be super fun. And then I was at my embroidery machine, I was playing with the oh, that light's weird. I was playing with some of my new vinyls that I got from Applique Getaway from Sweet and Sassy Booth, as well as some thread that I love playing with from Sulky. It's called Hollow Shimmer. And so all of those things, like it was just I was waiting on a bunch of other stuff, and I don't do good waiting. I've got to be doing something. And so the thing that I was doing was just playing. And so that tickles my brain and lets me still feel accomplished. And then I just had so much fun. So let me show you some of these tags. So these are just, it's a standard tag shape that I use a lot for like, just different things and bag tags or backpack tags. This one is, so this is technically an eyelet tag. It's made with 2 layers of vinyl, on the one on the front, one on the back, and then it has a little placement stitch right here at the top of this tab so that you can know where to punch a hole and then set in a grommet or an eyelet, whatever you want to do. This actually kind of really elevates it and makes it so that it's not just you know, it's not just a piece of vinyl. It makes it a little bit fancier. I'm grabbing these other ones over here that I just showing one of my kids. But it just makes it so fun. And so you could use this as an ornament, or you could use it as a key fob, or you could use it as a bag charm. You could use it as a backpack tag. You could tie a bow on it and tie it on a gift bag. These are just so super versatile, and this shape happens to be a rounded rectangle, which I just love. But you could do this as a circle too, and you could do it bigger, you could do it smaller. You could put bows on this and hang this on a wreath. You could, I mean, there's no limit to what you could do with these. But I just wanted to show you how I did it because I thought they were so fun. So first things first, let me ask you, if you're not in it already, if you would like to join my Designs by Baby Moon Facebook group, just search Designs by Baby Moon over there, or follow me on Instagram. And if you don't mind, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel and then click like on this video. That tells other people that this content is good, and I hope it's good. But it also kind of helps me with the algorithm. So for the rest of this year, I'm going to be working really hard to get my YouTube channel subscriber count up. And so I would love your help with that. If you don't mind, that would be super great. And I like to show you how to make things, whether we're doing it in the software or actually over at the embroidery machine. I just love helping people use the tools that they've invested in. So anyway, let's talk about these things. So here's another one. This one is I just put the lettering on it. I used the black patent from my punk embroidery. I love that. And then I grabbed, while I was at Applique Getaway, I grabbed a bunch of these stretchy, they're like these little wristband things. So you could attach this, just this with the keyring to your keys. And then you have a, thing on it. So that your keys are always there. So maybe you're a teacher or you're in and out, like when you go to the store and you want to keep your keys handy. These little wristband stretchies are really cool. You could also make these by just getting these stretchy parts in the hair tie section at the store and then adding a keyring onto it. That's all they are. The ones from Glitterbug Fairy were super cute because she had all kinds of colors. So she had, regular colors, and then she had fun metallic colors. And so this one, I love that. Super cool. It's kind of like they remind me of those old telephone cords. Remember the telephone cords when our phones were actually attached to the wall, or we had a handle that we picked up back in the day. My kids say, I always say back in my day. I don't say that, but anyway, they just like to make fun of me because I'm old, I guess. Anyway, these are super cool and stretchy, and they keep your thing handy. So if you had like one key, or, you know, if you're always getting into a cabinet or something at work and you need a key for it, it's a great way to keep up with those. Also, it looks super cute. And so I'm all about cute. I love something that just kind of makes things a little bit cuter. Usually I put a tassel on things, but on this one, I like putting these little stretchies. Okay, so I made a bunch of them. This one says in my bling era, and I did this on some cool, it's a slick glittery vinyl from Sweet and Sassy Blanks. And then down here in the corners for this flower, I used a metallic thread called Sulky Hollow Shimmer. And I can share a link for that. I got it directly from Sulky. It's, you know, if your local quilt shop or embroidery, wherever you get your embroidery supplies, doesn't have it, you can order it directly from Sulky. And so if you'll sign up for their emails, they always have really great specials a couple of times a week. So super fun. But this is the hollow shimmer. And so it's a very cool sparkly thread, and it shimmers like nothing else. So it's not a metallic, I mean, it is a metallic thread, but it is so shiny and so beautiful that it's just super fun to use and to play with. Here's another one. So this was on plain white patent vinyl from My Punk Embroidery. And then I just used navy thread for the lettering, but then I used that hollow shimmer. See how shiny and slick that thread area looks? I used the hollow shimmer for these little flowers here. And oh my gosh, I just love that. So this is my blingy one. I might add some rhinestones to that too, because that's super fun. So I was just, you know, playing with it. On these spooky ones, this is super cool. So this is more vinyl I got from Sweet and Sassy Blanks. This vinyl and this vinyl actually glow in the dark. Let me show you. I took a picture of it. Let's share this picture right here. Okay, this is these two tags. I went into a dark room and tried to get my phone to leave it dark. This is what they look like when they're glowing in the dark. Super fun, super cute. And so this vinyl is what did that. So again, I was just playing with the vinyl. The white one is this one is a glitter vinyl. Let's see if that'll show up on camera. I'm not sure if it will or not, but it's a glittery. It's not a pure white. So this bling one is pure white. You can kind of see the difference. This one has a little bit more of an eggshell tint to the white, but it does have that glitter in there, and it's really, oh, there you go. You can kind of see those flecks of holographic sparkle in the background. This one is a flat matte vinyl. It's not shiny at all. It's actually very flat. It embroiders really well, but it's a little bit softer. And so I might want to use a water soluble topper or a heat topper film on it next time I do this vinyl, but it does glow really cool after it's been exposed to the light and then taken into a dark room. So these are super fun. Anyway, can we talk about the tag design though? Because that's fun too. And that's what I wanted to show you. I did a whole bunch of them, and I just used the same parts for each of these tags, and I just changed the lettering in it. Now I had to actually, you know, go in, and I didn't just, it wasn't like a click change. I had to do some things, and that's why I thought this would be a good video, because I could show you how I did it. But I did use the ACE module that's part of the Embrilliance platform, and it's an add-on, so you can buy that extra add-on to add to your Embrilliance setup on your computer. So once you add it on there, it just populates. There's some things you do. You've got to download some files, and you have to add them into the right place, but it expands what you can do with your software. And so there's lots of modules like that that are part of Embrilliance. The digitizing aspect is another one that's a part of Embrilliance. And so that's called Stitch Artist, and Stitch Artist has levels, and you can buy, you know, level 1, you could buy level 2, which adds on more tools, and then you could add on level 3, which adds on even more. The ACE fonts are part of their own separate module that's just by itself, and so you would add that module on separately. So let me go over here. I want to make sure that you can see comments. Oh my goodness, I see Lady Bear. How fun. Yes. Oh, this is so, yeah, everybody needs to make these, and that's why they're so cool. And because they're just fun. And I know you could think of like 45 people that are in whatever era of life that they're on that need a tag. So Lady Bear, I was actually thinking of our friend Eve Lowry, because she is the bling queen. And I was thinking about all of the things that I was blinging lately. What I actually blinged, the last thing I blinged, the last bling thing I made is I was making a quilt block and I put some of Eve's rhinestones on it. So she was out of them at Applique Getaway, but when I got home the very next day, I placed an order and then they came and I got you know what? Well, they're too far away to get, but I got that. It's a bright pink color. It's like one of the signature colors of my logo. And so I got that, and I got that new icy, the obsidian color, and oh, they're so good. So anyway, on my little quilt block, I put the azalea colors in the pink area, and then I didn't put the obsidian ones on there because it didn't have any black in it, but I have a plan for those too because I have some other quilt blocks that I need to put some bling on and some zipper bags that I'm going to get to the point where I can do a whole bling, it's all rhinestones. But for right now, I just like putting little sparkles on things. And I got to learn how to do that whole thing. So I got to finish watching all of Eve's videos to absorb her knowledge. So anyway, that's where I got those. That was from the Baby's Booty. And I can put her link down in the comments for us. But it is... it's just fun to play with those things. Anyway, I was thinking about Eve when I did this one that says in my bling era. I was thinking about my daughter, Emma, who crochets a lot. In fact, she was just talking about, she had made a little headband and she was like, oh, now what I do. And she makes lots of things all of the time with crochet, but they're usually like 3D things like amigurumi. And for those, you stuff them and so you don't have to block them. And so that the yarn has a memory. And so she was playing with something that was flat and it was going to need to be blocked. And so we were talking about how to accomplish that. Do we have to do it every time? I'm like, no. Anyway, she's in her crochet era. So I was making those too. And then I just hung out with some of my quilty friends the other day at our guild meeting. And I thought these might be fun for little doodads that I could share the next time we have a meeting or something. If I get that many done, I did get quite a bunch of them done, but I thought those were fun and cute. And we just love hanging off things on our keys or our bags and all kinds of stuff. So actually I could make one that says I'm in my bag making era because I've made quite a few bags lately, but I'm going to set these all off to the side, but not before I don't show you this one. So this one I used a different kind of glittery canvas from My Punk Embroidery. And this one's super fun, but this is in my embroidery era. Lady Bear asked, you ever do the bubble bag tags? Are you talking about the ones with the glitter inside or the sprinkles inside between two layers? Yeah, I do. I do tags like that. And so those are super fun too. And actually, there's a way we could talk about that in a minute when we get over to the software. I could tell you what you would do to put those sprinkles in to make it like a shaker tag, if that's what you're asking about. They're super fun. Okay, so let's go over to the software and I want to show you how to make it. So I'm going to share my screen here, and this is my software. I'm in Embrilliance and I've got a finished tag up of the embroidery tag, the crochet one that I did. Oh, Lady Bear says like the shape of the name. Yes, actually. And I will tell you that those bubble letter tags, that is one of the first things that I made when I started doing machine embroidery. And honestly, that making just name tags, that funded all of the things that I needed to do to get started as a digitizer. Like it bought me new embroidery machines. It paid for the software. It kind of financed my all of the other things that I wanted so that I could play more with machine embroidery. And so, yeah, those bubble letter tags, I actually have a little video on that, but I need to redo that because it was a long time ago and I didn't have as good of a video set up for that. But I would love to show y'all how to make those. And so I'll put that on my list of videos to make soon. So, because it's fun. And if you've already got the Stitch Artist software or any embroidery software where you can bring in lettering and then add an outline to it, it's super easy to do. There's just some steps to do. So, anyway, I can see my screen, but I want to be able to see my software really big. So I'm going to get into my software and then you can see what I'm seeing because it tells me that StreamYard is sharing this window. So let's analyze this design first. Okay. So over here in my object window off to on the right of the screen, I've got my object window and it tells me all of the parts that are in this tag. Okay. So I've selected them all now. There's quite a few little parts. This is in the digitizing. So this isn't it's not an embroidery file. Like you can't buy this file from my website. I just wanted to show you how you could make it. And so let me turn on my Stitch Artist. So I turn on Stitch Artist by hitting the create button up here where it says create designs. And that turns on some functions that I can use to draw lines, make shapes, and then fill them with stitches and do some graphical things with it. So it allows me to draw with points, to apply stitch properties to the shapes that I make. And it allows me to do some things with the pathing. The pathing is where the starts and stops all are. It's so that your embroidery machine works in a logical manner instead of going from one side of the hoop to the other and possibly getting caught up in itself. So pathing is kind of important, but that's, we'll talk about that more in a little bit. What we're going to do right now is draw this cute thing. And so let's look at the parts of this tag. So when I make an embroidery file, especially one that's in the hoop design, I like to have what's called a placement stitch. So in this file, I've got a placement stitch that is basically, you can see copies of what you see at the very end. And so I've got a run stitch for the tab, and then I've got another run stitch that is for the body of the tag. And these are an outline that I'm going to stitch just on the stabilizer. Now, you might use a good tearaway stabilizer. You might use a cutaway stabilizer. The stabilizer that you use depends on what the outcome of your project is. So, wherever you're putting this. For an in the hoop project like this, I like to use a nice cutaway stabilizer because it makes the embroidery that I'm going to put on well supported and it gives me a great finish to that embroidery. So I'm going to use a good cutaway stabilizer. Probably a medium to heavy cutaway is what I like to use most when I'm using embroidery vinyl for these little tags. So I run this outline so that I can see both on the front of the hoop and on the back of the hoop where I need to cover so that my embroidery is in the right place on the tag. So sometimes when we're doing machine embroidery, this just kind of happens. Sometimes if we're putting something on the back or put on the front and we don't have an outline, sometimes we kind of end up with let me stop sharing this real quick and I'll show you what I mean. We kind of end up with like a little place on the back where we miss. Okay, so I had my placement stitch on this one, but I missed. And so this tag isn't good. I finished it because I wanted to take pictures, so the front is good. But I missed putting my vinyl in the proper place on the back. Now, for my tags like this, I'm using scraps. So I have a big bag of scrap pieces of vinyl that I was using for other projects. And so I just keep those handy so that when I'm doing tests like this or when I'm making, just one at a time, I can utilize those scraps well for a project. But if I don't have that placement stitch and I'm kind of eyeballing it or guessing where I need to put the vinyl on the back, sometimes I miss. So having a placement stitch just helps. And so that's why I like a placement stitch. Let's go back over to the software and let me tell it to share the screen again. I have to tell it I want to share that screen. Yes, I do. I really do. Share the screen. Okay. Here we go. Window. There we go. Embrilliance. Okay, here we are at it. This should be sharing the screen. Okay, there we're back at it. Anyway, that's the placement stitch. And for this area right here, the kind of run that I apply to it is just a single stitch and it doesn't really matter what size it is. I don't need a whole lot of stitches there. I don't like to have a lot of extra bulk underneath when all it's doing is an outline. Like, honestly, if it wasn't even threaded and your machine will work without thread, if it just punches the holes in the stabilizer for me to follow, that's good enough for me. But it's just an outline, just to give me an idea of where everything needs to be covered up. So I like to use a single stitch there. So then after that stitch is run, I'm going to put a piece of embroidery vinyl covering that area completely so that I can run the letters. And these letters I brought in from the ACE module, and I wanted to show you how I did that, but I just, I'm going to talk through this with. So the ACE module has a bunch of cool fonts, which I just love because they're super retro and super groovy. And it also has these kind of built-in little elements to make it very graphical. So this is kind of a really popular style right now, this groovy, kind of free form, wavy, loosey-goosey kind of look, and I love it. I love it. I love it a lot. And so I did that boxing and I applied the kind of letters that I want. And then I put this little element from another design, and I just brought in 2 of those little flowers that I'd already digitized and popped those in the corners. Okay, so just so it had something cute, you could do this with any little flower or any little element. And then I put in a little inner frame. So this frame in the middle, it doesn't show up on the outline, but it does show up um, at the end of the file. So on the back of, for me, this is just one step at the end because they're all in the same color. I have an inner outline, I have the outer outline, and I have another outline for the tab. And then I also have the little placement stitch for the eyelet or grommet, whatever you're going to use to place there. And I can see that the shape of this, I still need to fix that a little bit. It's not quite symmetrical. There's a little goofiness right there, but that's okay. Anyway, those all run at the same time at the end. So that's all one color. So when you look down here in the color order, we can expand this and make this taller so you can see there's only 5 color changes. So the first one is, oops, okay, that's fine. The first one is the placement stitch. Then there's the lettering. Then there's the petals to the flower, and then the centers to the petal, or the centers to the flower. And then after that part is stitched on, I will take my hoop off my machine, flip it over, and then on the back of the hoop where I can see the first outline, I can see this outline that we did all the way up here first. I can see those stitches on the back of the hoop. And I want to make sure that on the back of the hoop, I put a piece of material that is big enough to cover that outline. I will also see all of the stitches for everything that's stitched on there. And I don't want to see those on the back of my project either. I just want to see a nice plain piece of vinyl, or maybe you're going to do something that you've already embroidered somebody's name on it, or let's see, let me go back over here. And when I show you this, so on this blingy one right here, I have glitter vinyl that I put on the back. This is like a glitter canvas that I got from Hobby Lobby. It's super fun and extra sparkly. So this whole thing is just sparkle, 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 full of sparkles, which, that's fun. And anyway, so that's what I put on the back of that one. So there's, reasons why you could do it like that. So let me look at that. And that's going to hold that on the back, but I don't see all of the lettering that I had on the front on the back because it's covered up with a new piece of vinyl. Then that final outline is going to run again. Let's go back to those colors. And then down here at the bottom, I want to select all of them. Let's select all of them right there. These color stops in here, they may not be the colors that I actually use on the machine, but every time I put a different color for a different step, that tells my machine to stop so that I can do something. Like in this case, it's to put the vinyl on the back of the hoop to cover up the back and make a nice clean finish on the back. I don't, when I'm building designs with these colors in there, because I do a lot of in the hoop projects, I'm not necessarily thinking that I'm going to make this just like these colors over at my machine. And so I need to make sure that I use, stone color for the placement stitch, and then I've got to change my thread to kiwi for the lettering. No, I'm actually going to start with the first color that you can see. And so I'm not going to change my threads between step 1 and 2. I'm going to start with the second thread so that I don't have to do a color change. It just saves me a little bit of time, but I got to think ahead a little bit to think about what I'm doing. On some of these other ones, you know, I started with, this one's I only used 2 colors of thread. So I started with the navy, and I let the navy thread that I was going to use for the lettering also be the finishing or the placement stitch. Okay, so that stitch first. You can't see it because it's underneath all this. Then it ran the lettering. Then I switched to my hollow shimmer thread and let it run the flowers. And I thought, I wonder if hollow shimmer is strong enough to also do the outline stitches for me. And sure enough, it was. So I didn't even change the thread, and I let the hollow shimmer do the sparkle outline. And it just made me happy. It's just a little bit extra fun, and I wanted to see if it was, you know, it's kind of a I don't have any skip stitches. I don't have anything weird in that outline. It didn't break on me. And so I wanted to push it and see how much the thread could do, and I was pleasantly surprised. And then on the back, I just used a white bobbin thread with that hollow shimmer in the front, and it's fine. It looks great on the back too. So now I've got this rainbow vinyl, the same one I used on the front over here. I had another little piece, so I just used it on the back of this one, and it worked out great. So, you know, these are all things. I'm not making these for production yet. But if I was, I would, there are other things that I need to take into consideration. But what I have to do first is I have to test my one idea out one at a time before I go making a big hoop full of all of these. Right. And so these are just things that I do. And I thought it might be helpful for you to understand a little bit of the process. Testing is really important because we can't know what's going to happen when we fill a big hoop if we don't know what happens when we do them one at a time. So when you're starting a project, especially if you've got something that you want to make in bulk, make a couple one at a time, like in your smallest hoop, in your 4x4 hoop, so that you're not wasting a lot of time, first of all, but you're also not using a lot of materials and thread. So this way, when you get to the point where you can put it in a big hoop and you're doing a whole bunch at one time because you're going to make some for everybody in the group or whatever, you've got your process nailed down. So you'll know what thread you're going to be using. You'll know what materials you're going to be using on the, you know, front and back, and you'll just know all of the things so that when you get to the production point, you've got it all nailed down and you can keep going really quickly. Okay. So those are all the pieces on here. So let me show you how to do it. Okay. Here are the other ones that I did. Here's the blingy one. And you can see I just changed the thread colors on here a little bit. Actually, no, I didn't actually change them. I just changed my lettering. So in this one, I haven't stitched this one out yet, but I think it'll be fun too. One of my kids is a reader. Actually, a couple of them are in book clubs. So I thought that would be fun for them. Anyway, so let's make a new design. Okay, so I've got my 4x4 hoop showing on the screen. This kind of gives me the boundaries of where my design is going to be. So like I said, I'm not going to use a whole lot of material and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. So I'm going to use my 4x4 hoop. So I'm going to make a small version and then test that out first. So the first thing that I need to do when I'm making a tag like this is I need to make a shape. So I'm going to grab my little shape tool out here that's part of Stitch Artist Level 3. And then I'm going to draw a rectangle. Okay, so I'm drawing the rectangle. It pops up on the screen, and this is just square-ish. Okay, it's not actually square. It's actually a little too big because I don't have room for a tab that I could put a grommet in or an eyelet. So let's squish it down a little bit. And right here, you can kind of see with these square corners, you could do a square tag. That would be fine, but I want a rounded tag. So the way I take my square and make it a little bit rounded is I slide this slider up here for the corner radius, and I adjust this number. And so when I adjust it up, I get rounded corners. When I take the slider into the negative numbers, I get inverted rounded corners. So see, that's like a little different. And you just play. It's not using any resources. All you're doing is just playing right here. So you can play with this all day long on the computer just for fun until you get a shape that you like. And I think that looks good. You can go higher and, you know, scale it up there, and then you've got an actual circle. But let's go back down to about 20. I think that would be fun. Okay. And before we go any further, my computer's telling me that we should get some juice. So I'm going to plug it in real quick, because the last thing that I want is for all of this to stop right in the middle. So let's plug that in and make sure he's got juice. Okay, we're good. We're charging. We're back. Okay, so I've got, this is the basic shape for the tag. Now we need a little doodad at the top so we know where to put a grommet. Now you wouldn't have to digitize this. If you put enough material to cover this area, you could just cut that little loop out. I'm not that good at placement, obviously, which you remember, you know, so I didn't have a guide, and so I messed up because I didn't estimate my, you know, my area well, and so I need all of the help I can get. So you could take a little circle and you could make a circle bump like that. That would be fine. You could take another square or a rectangle tool and you could make a little bump like this. You remember when we change the radius of the corners, we can make all kinds of shapes with it, and we can make a nice, you know, bumpy one like that. So it's more of a, it's more circle-ish than, you know, a precise thing. You could also go to the shapes library in Embrilliance in the outlines. I'm over here in the ACE module real quick, but let's just go to the regular Embrilliance outlines. This is what comes with Embrilliance Essentials when you buy it. And you get all these outlines to play with. And so that, is it in outlines? It may be in Stitch Artist. I actually don't know. I think those are in, I have to go look up. Anyway, you could play with any of these shapes and use those for your tab here, your little bump here. So here's a half oval, which is already drawn, and I don't need it to be that wide, obviously, but I could use that, you know, just manipulate the shape so I have a nice tab. And if I don't want to do that, see, I can manipulate that. That's kind of cool. I could just draw a little bump. So let's move all these guys out of the way, and let me just draw that little bump. So I'm going to get my draw tool. I'm drawing with points, and there's lots of ways you could draw a bump. I'm going to just draw up, kind of put one in the middle, over and down. And so now I have a little bump. You can see that that's not super precise. I would need to mess with it and get it so it looks really good. That's not it, and that's not going to do it for me. So I'm going to delete that. And the one of these that I like the best is this half oval over here. I'm going to stick that on the top of this design. And I don't need this bottom line on that half oval because I already have a line from the outline. And so I'm going to open this up, this shape up, and I'm going to get rid of, I swung that one out of the way and delete that segment. And so now my half oval is really just these lines right there. It's just that arc on the design. Okay, so let me go back. I have to keep switching back over so I can see comments. So I want to make sure I can see comments. Oh my goodness. I see Deborah and I see Lorraine and I see Shamika. Oh my gosh. Hi y'all. And I see Blue Land, Connie. Oh, y'all, thanks for being here with me. This is so fun. Oh, Lady Bear, you said you added a bunch of Brilliance modules since AG. Yes, because they're fun and there's so much we can do. Okay, let me click back over here so I can see the screen. Okay, so what we have now is we have our outline. Now, this is not going to stitch anything because it doesn't have any stitches yet. So I'm going to delete that guy. Whoops, I'm going to delete the whole thing. I'm going to delete that other little guy just to get him off the screen. And then I'm going to make these two the same color. That way they're one step. And it doesn't matter what color it is. It's just the step. And actually, let's make it a little bit darker so that you can see it on the screen. Sometimes those light colors don't show up really well. And I'm going to apply stitches to this shape. So over here, and we drew the things Now we can apply the stitch properties. And so I'm going to select it. No, I'm not going to select the color. I'm going to select these 2 steps, and then I'm going to go to my stitch area, and I'm going to select a running stitch. Now, that popped up with just a single running stitch. That's each stitch is 3.5 millimeters long. I think that's a little too long. And so it doesn't really matter what that number is. You can test out these stitches and make yourself like a little stitch sampler with a bunch of different settings on there and see what you like. I know from doing this that I want something about between 2.5 and 3 millimeters for that size of stitch. And now I've got 2 shapes that are both with the same stitch properties, and then they will draw the outline for me at the embroidery machine. Before we go any further, let's watch this stitch out because I want you to see something. So when it starts drawing, it started over here in this corner, or, kind of to the left side up at the top. And now the machine's going to jump over here and then start that loop and stitch backwards over there. That's going to, I don't like that little jumpy thing. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change where it starts and stops so that this stitches in a nice logical order. And so this is the pathing part. So a nice thing to remember, all of the things that you need to do for digitizing, you can just look at the top of your screen on Stitch Artist. Draw first, then apply stitches, and then path. Think about the path. Now, these are tools they're graphical operators, and so they do different things. I'm not necessarily using that right now. I'm just thinking about the path that my embroidery the machine is going to have to travel so that things don't get caught. They don't get caught on a thread. They don't get caught, who knows what could happen. When you turn your back on your embroidery machine, sometimes everything goes crazy. I'm just thinking about the path that the needle's traveling, and I want that to be as efficient as possible. So I am moving my starts and stops on this shape right here to the part where the next shape starts. Okay, so this object right here that we put down is actually not a object with nodes. So it's kind of like a vector. And so this one doesn't have any nodes. This tool in the software came in without nodes. And so I manipulated it, but I don't really have any nodes to control little places on that line. If I want nodes on it that give me a little bit more control, I can right click on it and then I can convert that shape to a curve. And all of a sudden now I have nodes that I can manipulate. What I want you to see on this shape is right here that this node is red and green behind it. This is where the shape starts and stops because of how the software generated the shape. I want to override that. And so the way I override it is I come over here to the top of that shape, right where I put those manual starts and stops. I'm going to click on the line and give it a new node right there. So I put a node there. Do you see that circle node, that little node? That's a line node. Now I've selected that node. I'm going to further just kind of ooch it right where I want it underneath that start and stop. And now in order to turn that one red so that it is actually the start and stop of that line, I'm going to open my shape and close it again. And now that one turned red. And so now that is the true start and stop of the line. So I know that the line is going to start there. The stitching will start there no matter what else is happening. That's the true start and stop point. Sometimes when you go to your machine, if you don't have that red node as the start and stop, like if I had left it over here, and if this one was the start and stop, some machines, they're like, well, you said that start was over here, so that's where I'm going to start. And so they kind of override what you intended. This just ensures that no matter what machine somebody's using, and I have several. I have a brother bringing a Janome and a commercial multi-needle. No matter which machine or which format that I'm using, that's the start place. Okay, so that may be a little, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. But for me, as someone who makes designs to sell, it's kind of a big deal. I kind of get really crazy about it. So I'm going to make sure it's right there. And that way, this next part stitches from the beginning to the end, and then it ends there. Now what I need to do is add some lettering, and I said we were going to play with the ACE module, and so let's do that. So the ACE module, once you've downloaded it from the Embrilliance downloads page, and you've put in your serial number in here to your Embrilliance platform, and you've loaded the fonts in, you have a new thing at the top of the screen, and I'm hoping that you can see that. I wonder if I can see what you see real quick. I just want to make sure that you can see what I see real fast so that you can let's see. Is it going to show me? Can I see it right there? No, I don't think it's going to let me see. Let me look over here real quick. Okay, it is not showing me. It's not showing that part of this for you. So what I have right here is I have another outline. Oh, you know what I can do? I have to go over here to this and tell it to show that part of the screen. You know what? I'm just going to copy that out right here. Let's do it. Command-Shift-5. I'm going to draw this, and then I'll pop this up here on the screen. So in that top toolbar, in the outlines over here, and that's the section, capture. I just captured that, and now let me add it over here so you can see what I'm talking about. The screenshot right here. This is like a pop-up window that pops up that lets me add any of these shapes to it. So I can control, there's lots of different outlines in here, and so I can pick from there. That's where I got the little shape with a half oval. So let's go back to the remove the other media. Okay, I'll remove it. Let's remove that. There we go. Okay, so now let's put the file back there. Okay, there we are. Anyway, so I'm going to grab the ACE font up here. So the ACE is a patch, and I may have to, you know what, let's do that. Let's do another screenshot so that you can see. Capture. And it pulls up a new window that gives me all these other tools that I can pick from. Okay, so these are pre-designed lettering setups that they have fonts attached to it, but they also have kind of like extra fun. And I wonder if I should have tested this out. I didn't test it out before. I'll have to figure out how to show it happening on I know what I need to do. Hold on. Stop that screen share. No, I don't think I can do that yet. Anyway, I'm going to pick one of these setups, and it'll bring it on the screen, and then we'll be able to see how we play with it. But on the left side of this library here, the rewind, there's lots of different setups already. I'm going to pick one that looks like it's going to fit really well into the shape that I built. And then I'm going to do some things to it to make it so that we got that effect with the letters on the way we get it. So let me stop that screen share, do this one. There we go. So let me go to Embrilliance. I'm going to pull up one of them, and I'm going to pull up the, over there on the side, I'm going to pull up what's called a 4-line square set. And then there are lots of different options here. And the one that I pulled in is called the Wave Rise. And that just means that the letters all fit in this chunk, and they kind of look like these waves. So that's just what they've called it. Each of those doodads inside ACE has a different name. And so the ACE is two things. It is envelopes. Right here, you can see at the top of this, the side, we can move all of these guys down. We've got envelopes, 4 envelopes that are shaped. And then we've got 4 chunks of lettering that when you click on them, you can just see the lettering straight. But when I let go, they fill that envelope. So this is what's so cool about ACE is that all of the letters that come with it, they're all capital letters. Okay, so we don't have to worry about descenders or ascenders. You know, like if you have a lowercase d and then you've got the stem on the top, we don't have to worry about that stem on the top so that the letters look skewed or weird. We don't have to worry about a lowercase p with the part that's hanging down on the bottom not being aligned to the rest, to the bottom of the line of this, of the wave, so that it's weird. So when we're using all capital letters, we don't have to really worry about ascenders or descenders. And it just makes it easy to play with the letters as graphics, which is what we're doing here. And so these are pre-built into the ACE module. Okay, so they're already designed, the envelopes and then the letters. And then when you click on the letters, you can change these to whatever you want. So down here in the properties window, this says be the change you want to see. Let's make it, I want to do it just, I want to do just what I did before. I'm going to say this is going to be in my, okay, in my, when I click in my, it's there. When I click off of it, it stretches it to fill the box. And then the next lettering, letters 2, which is corresponds to envelope 2. This is going to be my, this one has 4 lines. So this is going to be called sourdough. Okay. This in my sourdough, click, and then 3, I've got bread. Okay. So I've got 4 lines of text in my sourdough bread, letters 4. We're going to make that say era. All right. So now when I click off of it, I have that little square that I could grab each part of. I could grab object number 2, then each of the lettering objects, and I can squish that down to fit inside. I can squish that down to fit inside. No, I can't grab all of those. I got to grab just the envelopes. Now I can squish that down to fit inside my box that I made earlier. Do you see how I did that? And I can put it right in the middle of that box. When I click off of it, it should reset and get everybody in the right place. Hello, let's go in the right place, y'all. Sometimes you got to give it a minute, and I've got a lot going on the computer right now. So let's just click off of it and click on it and get those in the right spot. There we go. Now they're going to fit right. Okay. You just got to give it a minute until we want it right in those boxes. Yep. Sometimes you just got to play with it. And there's further things that I want to do for those letters because those were digitized just so that you could put them on anything. I know that I'm working with vinyl and I have a certain setup that I do for my letters on vinyl because they don't need a whole lot of underlay, because when you're poking a whole lot of holes in vinyl, then you've got a lot of perforations and there's too much happening there and it can actually weaken the vinyl, and then you end up with holes or you end up with edges that don't look super clean. So I had done that on this one, and so I learned from this tag that I need to mess with my underlay so that I get a cleaner look. So on this, by the time I'd gotten over here to this one, I'd gotten it down. So this is a very clean, very nice look. Okay. Sometimes it's changing your needle, but sometimes it is the digitizing. Sometimes you need to pay attention to what you've got going on underneath your top layer of stitching so that you can get a really clean finish. So just think about that. All of these things go into play when you're building a design. So I've got my tag that says in my sourdough bread area. Okay, now this is a little bit different than the one I did before because we've got the 4 lines of text. But what I had done on the tags that I made is I put a little flower in the top and the bottom. Let me show you how I adjusted my lettering so that I could get that flower right there. There's a couple of ways you can do it. The first thing you could do is you could move the waves. So this one right here, I could actually adjust the wave and kind of scooch it over. And so now I have my letters kind of over a little bit. I can play with the edges of that shape so that I can alter it just a little bit. Let me click on just that one. And by messing with the nodes or messing with the lines, I can change the shape of that so that it looks a little bit differently. You know, it kind of is over there. And then I would do the same thing for the era one at the bottom. And I could scooch this over, and then I could play with the angle of that node until it lines up so it looks a little bit better, and I could leave it like that, and then I would be good. And then I could bring in something. So I'm just gonna go over to this book club one, and I'm gonna grab one of those little flowers. Let's grab all these little pieces. I'm gonna click, 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 and click, and I've got all of those. I'm gonna do a Command C and then a Command V. I'm going to put it over here. Now it's over in that top corner, and I want to swing it around so it'll be over in this corner right here. And I'm going to make it just the right size. And there's other things. So since I digitized that, I have all of the things that I can control. So I can control each of those little petals. I'm going to make that one a little bit bigger so it fills that space a little bit. And I'm actually going to make it a little bit chunkier. So I'm going to zoom way in and scoot it over so I can mess with it. And I want to kind of alter this line. Oops, I got a couple of extra nodes in there. Just so that that little petal's a little juicier. I want him to be nice and full. So I'm going to play with my nodes until my petal looks good. Okay, see, it's nice and chunky. And I could further play with the fill, the way these columns fill that area. But I've stitched it out a bunch, and so I know I like that little flower. I like the texture I have on there. I like the satin stitches on that, and I think that looks really good. So let's zoom back out, and we can take this little guy again, and we can put him in the bottom corner. So let me Control C or Command C, Command V. It's Control if you're on a PC. I'm on a Mac right now. And then I'm going to spin him around, and I'm going to put him down here in this corner. And he doesn't have to be like that. You could make him go like this too. You could put there's no wrong answer here. It's just whatever feels good to you. Actually, I think that looks super cute in my sourdough bread era. So now you've got your whole design. Now we've got the placement stitch. We've got the embroidery that happens. In this case, it popped the flowers up in that front design. And I want all of the yellows to stitch together. So I'm going to take that yellow one and grab it and put it by the other yellow center of the flower. If I can get up there, I may have to scooch this panel down so I can see it better. And then it'll let me drag it and drop it right where I want it. Okay, so I'm going to drop those together. So I have the placement stitch, that top little bobber part for the eyelet, and then I have the little flowers, and then I have the centers of those flowers. Okay, then what comes next, I have the letters. Now these letters aren't quite, I need to adjust them. Excuse me. And so what I'm going to do to adjust them is I'm going to change their stitch properties. I told you that they were digitized so that they could be used on a wide variety of things. And so they're just in kind of default stitch mode. But because Embrilliance gave us controls to be able to alter the stitch properties of these fonts, and we're in Stitch Artist and we can do that, I'm going to alter the properties. So for the default, let's bring this panel up so we can see it a little better. For the default, it comes in as an autofill with the tatami stitch applied to it. Now, this is little. Like, you can see that this lettering set on this in the hoop tag takes up less than an inch. It's like 3/4 of an inch tall and 2 inches wide. It's not big at all. It's probably fine. I just don't want a whole lot of stitches in there for the reasons I told you before. It's going to poke a lot of holes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this is not a lot of stitches. And I can tell how many stitches are in that little bitty piece of embroidery. Down here at the bottom, it tells me I've got 1,344 stitches. That we can get that down. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this to none. I don't want any pattern in there, and I don't want it autofill. I don't want an edge run on that. And just doing that right now took out like 300 stitches. So now I'm down to 1,094 stitches. I don't necessarily, oh, where did we go? I don't necessarily need an underlay in this lettering set because I don't want it poking so many holes. If I wanted the lettering to be raised a little bit or kind of like a little bit more filled out so it has more dimension, I could add the satin underlay, which adds um, uh, some parallel lines for the stitches to grab onto, as well as a zigzag that goes underneath all the lettering. And I would do that by clicking the satin, and I can change the density in that. I can make it a little bit less dense, or I can make it more dense. I know on vinyl, I don't really want any, and so I'm going to take that out completely. So now that little lettering chunk only has 1,094 stitches. I'm going to do the same thing to each of those lettered areas. So they're each a different thing. I'm going to take off the autofill, uncheck that box. I'm going to set none. I don't want anything automatic happening there. Just a regular satin stitch, take off the inset, and that's perfect for me. And I know that because I've tested it. So if you like something different and you want to test it out and see what happens, do it. That's you have complete control here with Stitch Artist, which is why I like it, because I like to control things. And this is a safe place to do that. I'm not telling anybody else what to do. I'm just doing my own thing. Okay, so I did that for all of those letter sets. And now I'm going to, thinking about my other tags here, I had that other line inside the outside edge. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab another copy of that line and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so that it fits right inside of here. So it kind of looks like a little decorative frame. So I'm going to do a Command C and then a Command V, and I've got a new instance of that line, but I'm going to deflate it. So I'm like thinking about a balloon that I'm taking air out of, and I could just shrink it in. I could do that, but I want a precise deflation so that it fits just right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I clicked on this little pathing tool that is the inflate button, but I'm not going big. I'm going in smaller. So my outline, I'm actually going to do a negative number, and I've told it that I don't, whoops, there we go. I'm going to go in 2 millimeters. Okay, so that line is 2 millimeters inside, and I don't need to worry about any holes. I'm going to tell it, okay. So now what it did is this run is now precisely 2 millimeters away from the outline. I like precision. That's why I like embroidery. And so that looks good to me. That makes my eyes, my brain happy. And so I think that that's really good right there. Now, this needs to be a different color because I don't want to send this to my Janome and then my Janome color sorts it for me. So let's change the color completely. Let's make that one green. And then I need a final stitch. So I need to make a copy of these two guys, the first two, the placement stitches. And I want those to be in the exact same place so that at the end of the design, I can put a piece of vinyl on the back and have it run these stitches so it seals up the tag for me on the front and makes the front and back nice. So I'm going to Command C and then a Command V. And now at the end, I've got those two things copied. And I'm going to take all three of those and change them all to the same color. One color. Let's make it that green color. Okay, now they're all green. And so now they will all stitch at the same time. I'm missing one more thing. I need a circle right here so I can put a placement stitch. So I'm going to go up to this fly out tool right here. And when I click on the arrow right here, I can change the shape to a circle. And when I click and drag, I can get a little circle. Okay, and now you can make this circle as big or as small as you want it. For me, it's just a visual so that when I'm using my punch tool, I know where to punch. You can use whatever size grommet or eyelet or ribbon you want to. I just need to know where I'm punching the hole at. So that's why I like to get it about 1/4 of an inch, but if I wanted to put a 1/4 inch grommet in there, I'd be cutting through the thread. And so I usually use a bigger grommet. And so if I want to do a 1/4 inch one, I'm going to make it smaller so that I can get all of the part of the vinyl with the thread out. Otherwise, I'm going to have a mess because my punch doesn't like to punch through thread. It does fine with the vinyl, but I don't want it to punch the thread. That's a lot of information. You may not need that much information. I'm going to apply some stitches to that so it will actually stitch, and it could be a single stitch. I find that those little holes do better when they're a double stitch, and I'm going to make it, kind of close together. So that one's going to be a 1.8 millimeter double stitch. That's the kind of stitch I picked. And then I'm going to change it again to all green so that it runs with that step. Okay, I don't want it to stop. I don't want to have to punch another button. It can just go. It can just do it on its own. Now, what I didn't do is I didn't assign a different stitch type to these outlines, and I want to do that. So I'm not messing with the little placement stitch. I'm just messing with the outlines. And I like this stitch to show up really well. So there's different kinds of stitches that you have that you can play with. So you could do a bean stitch, and you could do a nice chunky bean stitch and make this 2.8. You can make it up to 3.5. I mean, there's no limit what you can do. If you have a 6 millimeter bean stitch, that might catch on things. You might be catching the edges of your fingernail or uh, whatever gets caught. In my case, it's like my fingernails or something. So I know that I like about a 3.5 millimeter bean stitch. I like the way that looks. The only way you know how it looks is if you stitch it out, and you can see what it looks like. You can zoom in real close so you can kind of see where each stitch is. You got a kind of a graphical, what you see is what you get kind of thing on here with the estimated, the way it looks. But it's not actually, it's close. I like something that's a little bit chunkier. So I'm going to grab these parts again, and I'm going to actually apply what's called a sashiko stitch. And so when I click sashiko, I get something that's a little bit chunkier, and this makes me really happy. And so I'm actually going to scooch this up because I know when I do a sashiko, I have a little bit more to play with. So I'm going to do a 5 millimeter stitch. It has a nice gap between each little chunk of stitching. And what this does is it's a chunky stitch, and it acts like a bean stitch. There's just a little bit of a little single stitch in between instead of the bean stitch where each of these chunky ones are right up next to each other. The sashiko has a little gap. So it looks a little bit more crafty or stitchy, I guess. It's to imitate the effect of actually sashiko hand stitching. It's not. We're just estimating that with software. Okay. I just like the way that one looks. So that's what I'm going to pick for that area. And look how cute that is. The other thing that I need to make sure on this one is that all of these stitches have starts and stops that are tied in and out. So I'm selecting all of those pieces. I'm going to tell it to tie at the entry and tie at the exit. That way, this stitching run actually secures the front and the back together. And if for some reason the top thread and the bobbin thread don't catch right away, it's not going to pull out. It's giving the machine time to secure the stitching at the front and also at the end, because the last thing that we want after we get something all the way done like this is for some of these threads as we're trimming to like accidentally pull one of them, and then we have a little gap, and then the whole thing, it doesn't make you feel good. And what I've done in the past is I've just gone and hand sewed that close to give it some security. I don't have time for that. I'm going to make sure that in the software, I put my tie in and tie outs where I need to be. And the only reason I know that now is because I've done it so many times before. I didn't put the knots in, and I've had to hand sew through vinyl. It's not fun. I don't want to do it anymore. I'd rather mess with it here in the software. So I guess that's kind of a live and learn kind of thing. I'm also going to do the same thing on this little run. Now this one doesn't need it because again, it's just a placement. So I know where to punch the hole at, but I'm going to put the knots there just because. Okay. And you can decide if you want to do that or not. Now, as I'm looking at this, I'm actually seeing how that little line is touching now that I can see the stitches in there visually. And so I'm going to select this little guy over here, all these little parts. I'm just clicking on them to select them, and I'm going to bring it down just so it's not quite so close to that border. And I'm going to do the same thing with this little guy down here. Just click all those. And this is just, you could fiddle with this for days. But it just looks a little better when I have a little bit more of a visual gap. Okay, now let's look at our object window again, and let's see what we've got. Now look at this. So I've got my placement stitch. Oh, we're running slow. Okay, I've got my placement stitch, then I've got the little flowers, and I've got their little doodads, and now I've got the back stitch, but look what happens. All of those outline stitches stitch before the parts in my lettering. Now, that's not going to work because this says put the back on before the lettering. We want the lettering to go before we put the back on. So I'm going to grab all of these guys, and I'm going to drag them down and put them after the last bit of lettering. Okay, so I'm going to drag and drop them right there. And now I have new designs in this window. You can see these are all different designs that have different elements, but I want them all to be together. And so what I need to do is I need to make sure, first of all, that this design is not going to cancel out any of these stitches that are in my placement stitch because it's a totally different design. Now, this is part of because I didn't actually digitize these envelopes and then digitize this lettering. I just popped it in from that ACE element. It's not something, if I do combine designs, which is what I would ordinarily do, create, design, combine designs. The lettering, so the envelopes popped in there, but the lettering did not, and the lettering is at the end because it's not my lettering. I didn't draw it. So in order to get this lettering to be in that right spot, so it stitches before the final outline does, I've got to do some things to it. So what I do to it to get it to be up there is I've got to convert it into objects that fit in my design. Because they're not objects, they're letters right now. See, it says they're letters. They're letters, and I could keep adjusting those. I could turn them into, if I'm not in my sourdough bread area, maybe in my rock and roll era, or maybe I'm in my senior year of high school era, whatever era you're in. You could just change that, and I would save this like this right here so that I could edit that lettering really quickly without redrawing the whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to file, save as, save the working file as, this is the sourdough bread tag, and I'm also going to call it template, okay, because I might use this as a template later, and it has these tools still in it that I can still work with, okay. So what I need to do now is I need to select each one of these letter objects, and I need to right click on them, and I need to convert those into objects that I can edit. Okay, so now I've converted them into objects, and do you see how now they're inside that box, but they're not really letters anymore? They're letters, but they're more objects with nodes that I could adjust. I could play with these for days if I wanted to. I could move their starts and stops. I could change their stitch type. I can add underlay. I can take away underlay. I could do all kinds of things to these objects now. And I could edit the letters earlier and I could do things, but now I have a lot more control and I can play with their underlay in a different way. There's all kinds of things that I can do to those letters. I could turn them into foam letters if I wanted to. I could, put foam, the caps and the underlay so that I could put a piece of foam under there and have them super puffy. I don't want to do that, but you could. You could do that now. The other thing that does is it adds these lines to the bottom that help the letters know where they're supposed to be sitting, where that bottom part of the letter is supposed to be sitting, which was helpful for what they came in at as letters attached to the envelopes so that they could sit on that curved line. So they worked in that shape. So it's kind of like the line they were going to follow. So where's the bottom of my letters going to be? I don't need those lines anymore, and they wouldn't stitch out anyway, but it helps my brain if I go ahead and delete anywhere where I see one of those straight lines and I just delete it. Okay, it's not going to show up in my color list now. If I just had the objects, like let's convert this one to objects, convert it to objects. In my color list now, I'm going to have a bunch of little gray lines. So when I select everything, after every letter in the word sourdough, I've got all these baselines and they're just in there. They're not, they're in here as objects, but they're not really objects because they don't have any stitch properties attached to them. So they won't stitch out. They're just clutter on the screen. And so I'm going to get rid of that clutter. And I'm going to go up to object number 3, and I'm going to take out all of those little lines. And then, we saw that the other one didn't have underlay. We'll double check this one too. I'm just going to take all those gray lines out, delete, and they're gone. And then I'll do that to this one too. Convert it to objects. It pops itself in there. And now let's take out all those gray base lines. This one has 5, B, R, E, A, D. All right, delete that. I mean, digitizing is just hours of fun. Wasn't that fun? This is my kind of fun, y'all. I love this. I love doing it. And then I'll convert this one to objects. Do it again. I've got 3 to take out, E, R, and A. And now those letters that we use the tools in ACE to warp and make them fit into those little boxes, we have turned them into embroidery elements, and now we can put them in the right place in our object tree. Okay, so we can make them all stitch at the right time so that they stitch before that final outline does. So we couldn't do anything before because they were just letters. And now they are digitized things that we can move around. So I'm going to select all of them, everything after, starting with that I all the way down to the A for embroidery era. And I'm going to give myself the opportunity to see all of my chunks. And I'm going to, now that they're selected, I'm going to scoot them up before those final stitches, before the green goes. So I'm going to drag them all, that whole chunk of objects. There they go. We're going to drag them all and pop them right there. Now, what about these envelopes, those outlines? We don't need those envelopes anymore because they're not actually attached to any letters. Even though it says letters here, we've converted those to objects. So they're not really letters like that. They're still just called letters because we haven't changed their names. But I'm going to delete the envelopes, and now the letters are all right there. Now I can select the whole set of elements in my object window, and I can go create, design, combine designs, and now they are all part of one design. And now I am sure that when I go to the embroidery machine, each of these chunks of things will stitch out and not cancel out any prior stitches if I'd forgotten to turn off my hidden stitches. Some machines don't like, they don't, if something's on top of it like that, they don't like it. It's too much thread and they don't want to stitch through it. We need to stitch through it though, because we need to stitch the whole thing so we have those placement stitches. So those are tools for us. The last stitch here, this is just, a run stitch. It's that sashiko. It's super chunky, but it's not going to cause a problem stitching over that other outline. So the machine shouldn't balk at all when we're doing it. So let's do a playthrough and let's watch and see what happens. And I'm going to make this go a little bit fast, but let's just play it. And I'll make it a little bit bigger. Oops, so we can see what's happening. Grab that, move it down. Okay, so we're stitching those letters, and we could get crazy and we could even go make them stitch from this one back this way, then over that way, and then up there. We could do that too. There's our tag. That's how to do it. And we could do that with any of the other ACE tools. And so I'm going to grab the outline right here. I'm going to just grab all these. I'm going to do Command C. I'm going to start a new design right there. So now I've got my outline, and I can go over here. I'm going into that Embrilliance, this tool thing right here, merging designs from the library. And I'm going to grab something else from the ACE library, and I'm going to put it in here. So there's all kinds of other doodads I can get. I can get one that looks like this. This is called the 3-line square, and there's all kinds of little chunks in this one. And this one is it's a sphere wedged. That's what it's called, sphere wedged shape, and I'm going to click on all those chunks of it and get it. Nope, I'm just going to click on the sphere wedge shape. Come on. Let me click. My computer's having to think too hard. And I'm going to make that tiny so it fits in my box here, and kind of stretch it so it does what I want. Okay. And see, that's how you could just do that there. Move your outline so that it stitches afterwards, and that is super cute. In this box, you've got these other letters, and I could pick a different font. So maybe I don't want the Lagrange font. Maybe I want the Ace Earnest font, which has a little different feel to it. And I could change that as well. So maybe I want each one of them to be something different. So it's super groovy. I don't know. There's no rules here. It's just play. I don't know that I would do that, but you could do that. It's totally fine. So that's how you make a tag. That's how you digitize a tag like this so that it could be in your embroidery area. Let's actually go back here because I want to show you one more way you can get that space on the end of the letters so that you had something to add. Instead of playing with the envelope shape, you could actually just make a space inside the that wedge. Okay, so when I change the lettering in this one that says practice, I'm going to use that Earnest font. I'm actually going to add another letter right at the front. I'm going to add an O just because an O takes up a little bit of space. I'm going to add a space to it. So it's going to say, oh, in my embroidery era, or let's make it this one say, we'll do embroidery here. Okay, embroidery. I didn't have a little flower on embroidery, but I'm going to make it say embroidery, and I'm going to change the font so it matches. We used Earnest. Okay, and then this one's going to say era down here. And then because I had the little flower down on the bottom left side, I'm going to add an O. So I did a space O. We'll change the font to the Earnest font and hit, oh, let's make that say era O again. Era O. And now when I do the same thing and I convert these two objects, okay, I don't need the frames anymore or the envelopes. And I'm not sure I would use that font actually because it looks a little squished on there. But we're going to leave it for now. So convert it to objects. Now I have these objects here. And like in the word era, I'm going to delete those baselines. So you can see those gray baselines. Let's just get the baselines. We don't need everything else. I'm going to delete the baselines, but I'm also going to delete that last O because now my lettering is over to the side. It fits in the envelope nicely, but now it's an object and it left me a little space there. So you could alter the envelope, which is what I had done before. I clicked the envelope and then I kind of adjusted the shape of it. Or you can just add the space by adding something extra to the end of your word. So I learned a new word recently, and I shared this with my people at Applique Getaway, but it's called equifinality. And equifinality means there's many ways to arrive at the same destination. And I thought that's so cool. It totally applies to digitizing because there's any number of ways to accomplish this, like to accomplish this little tag or this little idea. And none of them are the right way. They're all ways. They're all perfectly valid ways to get there. So whether there may be ways that you have to do something and you do it totally different, and that's totally cool too. So there's no wrong way. There's many different ways to do it. So let's see. Okay, let me come back over here and I can see you guys. Oh my gosh, y'all are so sweet to all jump in. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Shay Shay. Oh my goodness, it's so nice to see you. So anyway, I want you to play in your software. I'd love to see if you try this technique, what you make. I don't know what era you're in. Maybe you're in your menopause area. I should make one of those for me as a warning to all of the people that I encounter. Don't mess with the menopause ladies. But maybe, maybe you have something specific. Maybe your kids are at Latin club at school and they're in their Latin club era. One of my kids actually saw that and was like, could I do that? I'm like, we could do that. So there's no end to it. have fun with your software. If you need Stitch Artist and you haven't gotten it yet, I do have a link in my description, and I appreciate if you would use my link to peruse the offerings over at the Embrilliance website and see if there's parts or modules that you would like to get to add on to your collection of Embrilliance tools to use. There's lots of fun things over there. We just looked at a couple of different ones. So we used the Stitch Artist. I showed you things from level 1 and level 3, the flyout for getting the shape and then being able to change the radius on the outside of the tag. That is a level 3 tool, but you could draw with points. You could simply draw a shape with level 1. That would be totally fine too. You could also use shapes from the library and get a rounded rectangle tag or something like that today. All of those, again, equifinality. There's lots of ways to accomplish the same thing. And you could simply make these letters in a graphic design program like CorelDRAW or Adobe Illustrator. You could put the letters out there and then you could digitize each letter too. And that is a perfectly valid way to do it. But again, no wrong way, lots of ways to get to the same end result. All right. I hope that was helpful, and I hope you had fun seeing what your embroidery software can do. And I hope that you go make something cool. If you don't have any vinyl to play with, you could pick up vinyl at a craft store like Hobby Lobby. You want to look for material that is upholstery grade, the kind that you would use to like make a bag with. That's the kind you want for embroidery. You could check out a website like Sweet and Sassy Blanks and such, or My Punk Embroidery, or Glitterbug Fairy. I know My Punk Embroidery tests all their vinyl for machine embroidery, so I always feel safe buying embroidery vinyl from there. The other vinyls, I know that they can be used for bag making, but they may not hold up for embroidery, or there may be some things that you want to do, like this glow in the dark one. I felt like I needed a topper for it. I didn't know that until I stitched on it, and so I had to test something to see. So anyway, but pick up some vinyl, use your embroidery software, and make some cute stuff, because the world needs the cute things that you're going to put into it. And so I can't wait to see what you make. If you have a chance, come join me over in my Facebook group. It's Designs by Baby Moon Friends and Fans. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, because I love talking about digitizing, and there's all kinds of things that I want to teach you. So I'd be happy for you to come along with me on the journey. If you want to learn more about digitizing, especially in the hoop projects, I do have a private part of YouTube where I share how to digitize in the hoop projects. And so there are 8 modules currently on there, and I have 3 more that I'm in the process of recording for you, but all kinds of things like snap tabs, eyelet tags, Christmas ornaments, pocket projects, zipper bags, freestanding lace. I love digitizing freestanding lace. Anyway, all of that is over there. And if you're interested in that, you could buy access to that over on the Designs by Baby Moon website. You'll want to look for the In the Hoop ITH Digitizing Kitchen if you're interested in accessing that kind of content. But I love helping people use the software that they've got. So let me know what you think, and be sure to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching.